Like me. This is papaya milk now.
Papaya milk?
Yeah.
Like Taiwan.
New flavor.
Okay, so let's start with the question. So, the casting.
Guys!
So the document is right here. So, if you could, you can stand right here instead of in the corner.
Okay.
So let's start with one question. Who know what is project? Who know what project is?
Okay, but
Okay, Oyana.
I think project is like you want to do a big thing, but it cannot be done one day. But you have to there is a step to it, and then you have to change it for today what part you're gonna finish it, and tomorrow what part you're gonna finish it, and by the end of for example, the week or the month, so you want your achieve your project, and then success or not, and then you have to
Okay. Okay.
A lifetime usefulness.
What?
A lifetime usefulness.
Oh, the lifetime usefulness. Yeah, that's really good. Okay. Anything else? No?
Yes.
Oh, Aggie.
Something like campaign. So campaign to actually make a result or to see if we can actually do some experiment to actually make a useful result.
Okay. So basically, looking for a solution, manage it, and then get the result. Yeah, that's basically actually the point of the project. So normally, what and when I say that I was going to make a project, I will see what is the problem first. What is the problem that we are having, and why do we have the problem? We need and what kind of solution that we need to do. And the most important thing, actually, the result or the impact. So there are two types. Because we are using OKR, so we need to know what is the objective and then what is the key result, right? So in general term, it's normally just say what is the problem and then what is the impact. So when doing a project, your input is a problem, and then your output is the impact. So there are only two things actually to start a project. But did you notice anything that's missing from this only two when we are using only two foundation basically? So normally we only talk about objective and key result, or problem and the impact. So what is missing from this? Okay. Timeline. Yeah. Not quite there yet.
Indicator.
Indicator is we used to measure the impact.
Testing. I mean, whether the project is really useful or not. Whether
Okay, that's also to test the impact, right? But there the step that is actually missing in the middle. Okay, action. Yeah, that's correct. So we're not really talking about action, right? So what is the solution? What is the action? And what is the impact? Right? That's the normal thing we do. Normally we do things. But why do we only focus on the objective and the key result? Because generally we want to have agile or easy switch of plan. So you can move from plan A to plan B easily when something is not working, but the effect still the same. Like you have one problem, you want the certain impact to happen. Sometimes you have one solution, but when you make that solution, it's not giving the impact that you want. So you might need to change the process. Normally we would say like, I don't care what your effort is, as long as I get the impact. So that's normally what happened in the project. So why we are using OKR? Because we want to achieve that impact. The impact is the most meaningful way. So instead of so basically, project is different with product. So you can make a product. You can make people maybe people want to travel long distance, and then you create car, for example. That you're creating a product. But if people don't know how to use car, you don't have the impact. You only have the product. You need to teach people how to use car, teach people how to maintain it, how to drive it to get you to the destination. So basically, that's how I see how we normally or should do project. So project start with problem, ends with impact, and then in the middle it's up to you. It's your management. So let's give, for example, so me and Jing has been collecting some of showcase from our previous projects. You want to introduce some of them?
Yeah, sure. So the idea actually sprang from a discussion I had with it's like a blind spot. So I had a discussion with Dee about what constitutes a project. Now, it's actually on everybody's contract that when you come up with a project, there's an additional pay for that, right? But there's, I guess, not an agreement yet on what actually constitutes a project. Now, I realized that what's a project in my mind was pretty clear, but now it's interesting now the team has gotten bigger, and there's all these ideas, like what is a project? Is this a project? Is that a project? So I thought actually one of the easiest ways to actually create understanding about what a project is we'll just go over and create a project showcase. So I was actually inspired by a company over, wait, let me show you where they are. Like that. Ah, I got them right over here. What? Over here. So you guys can pass this around. This is actually, this comes from a company called Harpoon Brewery. They're located in Boston. Becca and I went to take a look at them last year in fall. So what Harpoon did that was pretty inspirational to me is that they had a wall. And on that wall was a list of all the projects that people had done. So some of them were just suggestions. Some of them were like, instead of using this, we should use this. Instead of doing, and some of them were very, very detailed. Some of them were like about how to make beer specifically. And they advised on reducing the temperature at a certain stage, or increasing something at a different stage. Very, very specific. But it worked. And the impact was actually quite great. And I saw this entire wall. It filled up like almost like that of all these suggestions that people in the brewery had and that were implemented and actually affected the beer. The beer is actually one of the most successful microbrew beers in at least the U.S., right? So I was inspired by that, and I thought, okay, all right, that's a great thing to have. I think if you have a product, if you have an idea, you have a suggestion that can make the whole company better, you should celebrate that. And the first way we're going to start is just by showing some projects that have succeeded in the past. And we'll go over them and we'll kind of collectively look at it together, right?
By year now. So
Okay, by year. All right.
2016.
Okay, let's take a look at the year. So, a lot of these started with problems that we were having, and a lot of the problems were just about time management. For example, Text Expander was one of our first projects. Before we had the problem that we would have to write an entire new message every time. That was a big waste of time because that just is, right? A lot of the feedback that we have is pretty automatic. So we started with a tool called ATEX that was able to, we just drop in a code and then it creates the entire welcome message and creates the entire thing. Later on, it wasn't just helpful for welcome messages, it became access. It became like a key to certain tools like text, like BVRR, right? We don't remember the website for BVRR, we just typed in or BV Stats or whatever else. So that was a pretty successful project. Bayu was the key contributor of that one. It was finished in April 2016, and the objective was to reduce the response time delay involving typing long answers. It probably also saved our risks from repetitive stress, carpal tunnel syndrome, and repetitive stress injury. The key result was that we used the snippets for frequently used answers and welcome messages. There was consistent information in each welcome message, so it didn't depend upon your mood that day or what you could remember. As long as you remember the welcome message, we can always send it out. It also became actually a saving time on manually. It also became a really good way to distribute new content. Like whenever we wanted, let's say for example, a video to be shared in a welcome message, we could just go to the text expander, change that, and now all the welcome messages would be distributing videos. Instead of actually telling everybody, please distribute the video, there was an automated way to do that. So there are results. We can see how many hours that we've been saving. We've saved 187 hours so far from all the extra typing that we've done. Is that collectively or just a month? We save 187 hours a month collectively as a company from having that tool instead of having to write everything out. And we use 20,000 snippets a month. Yeah. Okay, so that's pretty gigantic. That saves a lot of money, saves a lot of time, allows us to move forward. Okay, let's go to the next project. The next project was okay. Bayu again. All right. So this was the idea of creating a chapter. Bayu was the key contributor on that, and the idea was before we worked essentially in just like kind of a casual basis, right? Somebody would say, "Oh, can you take the photograph?" Okay, I'll take the photograph. There was no idea what a chapter was. So the idea of creating a chapter was to remove friction, so that each time a photographer, in ordering a photographer each time that there was a new partner, and also when Airbnb search results. Actually, I'll let you talk about this one because I think you probably have more.
Okay. Okay, so this is actually start with when we have our photographer, Evelyn, that that we have new Villa Purnama.
Yes.
And we wait like 2 weeks to get it photographed because Evelyn is very busy. And then when she's here, the villa is not available or the weather is not good. So we have friction on that. Well, in the day that actually like right day, and then she's not available. So basically, it just sparked that I actually or like photography, right? So why don't I try? I seen out some of the previous photo. I think I should be able to make that kind of photography. Actually, it turned out I didn't. So I took a bad photograph for the first time. But there we know that there's an opportunity to learn. Actually, so if you're doing this like 100 times, I must be better at doing photography. So that it started with that. I just used my own small camera, and then we're trying that on Pura.
Yeah.
And then the result is better as we're trying like night photography, and then watching YouTube about how to take better property photography, and then it grows that it's actually it would be better if we actually have dedicated people to do this. At that time, I'm doing hosting and reservation. But then later, we have a lot of partners coming that need photography and listing creation. So we actually have dedicated person to do content, and then we hire more content person. So the key result for this project is that now the photography can be done in-house and can be arranged quickly, even last minute. And then the listing is constantly improved based on guests and host feedback.
Right.
This is what it's
Okay, this is actually kind of an interesting idea too. It's the idea of also your career path can be tied to the project. So by starting out as a host, there was an opportunity to improve the system, took initiative, invented the role basically. So there was no photographer role in-house at Bukit Vista in the very beginning. That role was invented because, well, we need somebody to do it full time. So other roles later on along the way also became invented because of necessity. Revenue management is one of them. We got to a certain point where we're bringing in properties that they weren't producing. So it wasn't doing us any good to do all this onboarding and then not have any production happening. So projects can actually lead to also career plans too as well. So think about that. Okay, next project. Oh, we gotta go to a project that wasn't done by you.
Okay, let's get
All
that
right.
tableau. PPR, and then
Okay, so Night Shift is a project that I put up recently. I think that was started by Rafik. Rafik, what would you say started the discussion around Night Shift?
No,
Night Shift as a role. Actually.
because we have many complaints regarding it's not replay about the WhatsApp, not replay about inquiries, and we have a lot of complaining as well from Airbnb, and the guest was cancelled. And Airbnb tried to contact us in the night, 1 or 2 a.m. We don't have person here. And even though, because the Airbnb is really care about the guest, and if the guest is not respond by the host,
Right.
the guest can cancel, and then the host is not responding, even though that is 10 p.m. or 9:30 for example. Because we already
Right.
leave from office. That's why we don't take maybe 1 or 2% maximum until 3 a.m. But I suggest for first we have a shift like 7 till 3, 3 to 11, and 11 to 7. But we don't have enough people, so.
Yeah.
So we try to find a solution for that.
Right.
So we try from 7 until 3 because, and Wayana said, at least 3 is enough because the last flight from another country is 1:30 or
Right.
something, right?
Right.
So it's work until now.
Okay. Perfect.
And also like on the other hand, like because like also like it's good for the team because like just actually brought up by email like everyone like on during the party they have to call like a guest call like the government
Right.
who where they're from.
Now somebody can
So and
security.
then that so one person work and then the rest can be take the rest one or go on a party wherever take their time.
It's like guard watch.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And that was a new
Night
project too, Night Watch, and that created a many benefits. Right?
Yeah, many benefits.
Many benefits.
For the
One,
guests, for the
Yeah.
Airbnb, for the team.
and
Yeah.
bookings and all these other ways too as
Yes.
well that actually ended up being a really good practice.
So we call Batman.
We call the Batman.
Yes.
We call the Batman show. All right. Very good.
that-
Okay.
that-
There is, of course, other projects. Let's go back that someone can't even remember anymore. Some that are worth mentioning. BVRR, right? So BVRR came about at a time when we were scaling. Once again, it was repetitive stuff. It was going out to every. I remember when we were using Google Sheets and Rapid, we built the entire guest list. We were going to each profile every night and adding each guest name onto the check-in list, and then settling
Yeah.
it into each region
Yeah.
that they were going to settle in. It was a
And-
tremendous amount of time, and it was something that couldn't be scaled. If you did that with 100, 200, 300 people, then how many people would we have just to do that job? And it wouldn't be up to date either, because every time you update the list, a new person makes a booking, last minute bookings come in, and so the list isn't right. So every time somebody called and said, "Am I on the list?" we'd be like, "I don't know." It was this really scary moment, and we were not up for the test. So we brought in programs, Vincent and Nia, project managed by Larry. We got to develop a system. So we started taking essentially the emails, which happen at the moment of booking, immediately, parsing those emails and then adding it into a directory that is now BVRR. And that's actually a really, really big contribution. Because if we didn't, Rafik would still be up all night instead of being with his wife. And if Rafik was sick or gone, then nobody would probably be doing anything. And there would be no way for us to know where guests are arriving or anything. So,
Sometimes for booking, like we get already on site, like
Yeah.
what, where they did the booking.
Absolutely.
Like, just like,
and
So-
it's already taken a huge amount of time away from self-registration. Before we'd have to manually register each booking that came in on a
yes.
Google form. We'd
that
write down
was-
the guest name, copy all the information from the Airbnb reservation request.
Yes,
And that
we will
took
see.
hundreds of hours collectively, I'm sure, as well, doing something that wasn't a very high quality task. So BVR has reduced all that, and now all the data is right there, we can find it. And that brings us to the next point, which is to the Tableau. Before, when we're running an organization, we didn't know how each team is doing, we didn't know what was wrong. And essentially, every time when we ask, is everything going okay, everything's going fine. But how fine? How well? What's wrong? What's broken? So once we have Tableau now, we can look really deeply into each region, each property, and we can convince with data. And this is a huge change in the way that I think any organization will work. When you have data, you can speak with certainty. You can speak with authority. You don't just go, I think this is happening, I'm not sure. You can present before any knowledgeable person and prove your point, right? Like I think with being an Ombak just the other day, we lowered the price and all of a sudden we got far more bookings. The revenue shot up through the roof. So when you use data correctly and you can use this to understand what's going on, it's not just valuable to us, it's valuable to anybody who talks with us. Anybody who's smart will know that you know what you're doing. If they're not, if you don't understand the data, then probably not worth talking to anyways. But at least we're on the right page now with where the data is. We can see the performance of the squad, the profile, we can have market insight. We know what we're talking about when we're talking about the median price in the marketplace. We can see revenue projections, seasonality, and there's no fear anymore. We can grow the company, because we know how much we're going to make in the future, which is also pretty good. We also know if there's a problem coming. Like, for example, during the volcano, we saw what the impact was. We didn't freak out, but we could see that what exactly the impact was, how many cancellations happened, how many of the booking paces dropped, and that gives us an idea of how we'll react in an intelligent way. Okay, so that was the Tableau. That was also done and maintained by Bayu. Let's see. There's other projects in the company, I'm sure. This is already posted up already on the all hands document. All right, the PRM and the CRM for human resources. Those were also two new innovations. I guess I think I was a contributor mostly on the PRM idea, right? So before we had a problem where the market builder would come in and they would not be able to, or nobody else on the entire team knew what the market builder knew. So the market builder would acquire a deal, they would know the owner, and then whenever anybody else on the team, such as content or hospitality had a question or revenue managers had a question, they would have to ask the market builder. Especially the reservations people, they wouldn't know anything about this property that we brought in. And then they would have to ask the market builder. They weren't sure which market builder was brought in the property either, so it was all very confusing. So once we had a PRM, we could essentially ask the market builders, just fill in this form, and then anybody doesn't have to ask you, they just query the form, and they would find this information. Now we can have thousands, tens of thousands of partners, and we don't need to rely on somebody who remembers or doesn't remember what happened. It's all written down. As each partner progresses too, we make records on it, so anybody reading that record will know what the status of the relationship is. It's kind of like a Facebook status. Yeah.
So did everyone know the PRM? No? Okay. So in the PRM, there it will be like at least the picture of the property, and then the owner of the property contact, and then the WhatsApp link. That's very important. You guys, if you need like contact the owner, especially like safe, so you can just join yourself to that link, and then you can have authority to chat with the group. And then if you like presented and stuff, and then you can do the findings because we update the. I personally update like percentage data, and also the bank account details. When I got it, I already put it there, and then the contract as well put it there.
Very good. Okay.
So that's
right.
the PR.
So if you don't know what it is, why don't give a demonstration right after this? It is a very important part because that disassociates the idea of like having to go to one person to find knowledge about it. It gives everybody access to a partner.
Basically, that's the partner profile. So
When we can access them.
SQ1 PRM, SQ2 PRM.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's just the tech expander, and it's all on Trello, and you can access it there. So that was another project. Similarly with human resources, we created human resources. Everybody who's a recent hire has the profile card on that, and that allowed us to keep track of candidates because it was very difficult before to remember where the candidate was, how many times they had interviewed, what the results of the previous interview was, what the previous interview said about them. And anytime a candidate came up to us, we were always shocked, right? We're like, what happened to this person? Did we interview them? It was always kind of a nervous situation when we didn't have that information. And plus, if we were like that, then we were going to have pretty much a bad reputation throughout the job scope. People would say, look at this and never follows up, look at this and doesn't know what they're doing. So we got that system in place, and now we do know what we're doing. Now we know exactly where each candidate is in the process, and so does anybody else. We can hire more recruiters, we can add more candidates, and the process gets easier, actually, more scalable. Okay, all right, so those are some. The sales funnel was a similar thing, using Trello to do the sales funnel. So that was another innovation project that we had. There have been other projects here. Does anybody want to nominate another project that we've done that they can remember? We'll go with Rafi first, since he's been here for a while. So if you want to nominate any projects that you can remember that have had meaningful impact? There's so many, right? Okay, all right. Sid?
It's not about. Sometimes I've been here for 2 years. Right? I'm not exactly what is because it's project. If you project, you can claim it. Right?
Yeah.
Right? I'm more than that project. I'm doing actions here.
Yeah. Well, projects need action.
Yeah. For example, yeah, just hey, can we do that? Just go.
Yeah.
Even though I don't remember what is the project, I do the Excel.
Rafik's approach, I think, is a very good approach. We have a saying here, fail fast, and that's exactly that idea. And instead of planning projects and creating gigantic ideas in the cloud and not really doing anything, just go with what you think works and then figure it out along the way. A lot of projects, they say a startup is like pushing yourself off the cliff and building an airplane before you hit the ground. And I think a lot of projects are like that. We don't really know where we're going, but we need to face a challenge or a problem at the very beginning. And we take a step and then we kind of figure it out.
I remember one.
Right.
WhatsApp group. So before, remember that it was a WhatsApp group. So basically, I handle when in the beginning, I handled it from BlackBerry, and then I said, okay, the guest.
BlackBerry.
I email from BlackBerry. So that's I have to remember all the title of the property so that I can answer for the question. So and then I arranged a transport to the guest. So and then I said, I know, for example, I use the bed. The guest is waiting in the front of the reception. And then the guest, hey, I'm here at the coffee shop. Okay, can you go to the reception? And then it's kind of 4 times talking until the guest meet.
Okay.
So and then we just said what do we and then WhatsApp is coming, and then we make the WhatsApp.
Using WhatsApp, the WhatsApp groups, and WhatsApp web was an innovation at the time.
Yeah.
Nobody else was using it about 4 years ago.
Yeah, and then
it was so new it became known as the Bukit Vista method because we had guests that then would use it to their guests. So they were coming from Ubud at Green Village or somewhere, and then I saw this used by another host in Ubud, and so they offered when they checked in a guest, they said, okay, we'll put you in a WhatsApp group, and then you'll be in contact with the butler and also our front desk. I said, that's really interesting. Where did you get that? And then the person said, don't you remember me? And
I'm the guest before.
Whoa! She said, I was your guest. This is what you did for me. I was like, no way. That's interesting, right? So they're using these practices now too. I think hotels are beginning to use this now. Now WhatsApp is being used everywhere for everything. It's just so common. But at the time, it was a really big problem because drivers wouldn't be able to find guests, or somebody who's delivering a pool fence wouldn't be able to find the guests either. Right? They would go to the house. They'd say, "Where's the guest?" They'd be like, "I don't know. Right? Didn't you make arrangements for me?" No. Why don't you make arrangements for yourself? So we created WhatsApp, and then we add the pool fence guy in. They would then tell the guest, and if there was a change, they would then put it in the group, and then the provider would know. It was very easy.
Yeah.
WhatsApp groups was an innovation. Okay. Any other innovations that?
For seasons mentioned, yes.
Yes,
the
go ahead.
finance report, isn't it? And we will have the monthly report, financial
Yes,
report.
I think finance reports are an
It's like
innovation.
wherever,
Yeah.
wherever comes from Airbnb.
Exactly. Finance reports are an innovation. Before we didn't have them, and now we have them, and now they're going out and workers are not. That's a good nomination. Any other nominations?
Overseas expansion.
Oh yeah. So here's another one. Project's not. You can put your project in the project graveyard too, right? That's okay. We have a broken drone over there and our first iMac up there. It's a reminder of this journey is not always without failure, right? So the idea is put a project up even if it wasn't successful, because that is then a warning to everybody else for what not to do, right? There have been many unsuccessful projects here. Actually, probably more than the successful ones. But there should be no reason then to keep that to yourself, right? There's no shame in failing. I think there's a lot of grit. And even people who have, I think, gotten a job here now will fail at least 2 or 3 times because we'll make sure they fail so to see if they will improve. So if you do have a project like overseas expansion, that's not really succeeded in any terms, right? We've tried many times and we're still kind of stuck on that one. But we're going to put it up there because I think we still should do it. Not like that we shouldn't do it, but we should put why we failed and what the outcome was, so that hopefully nobody else later comes and says, let me do this again, let me do that again, because then that would be a big waste of time, and it would be essentially a repeat of our previous failures. I got one really good insight when I worked at Airbnb. Airbnb was a very transformational company for me, because they did things so differently. We had a big sync up like the way we're doing right now. All the global offices were in the room, and everybody was talking about success, right? Everybody was saying, yeah, in Bali I just got 500 hosts to sign up. I'm awesome. And in Thailand we got like 2 apartment blocks. We're awesome. And then all of a sudden the Brazil team comes in and they don't say anything great. They say, we just spent $50,000 on Twitter and we got 2 signups. So we paid $25,000 for each person who signed up. But that was great because what happened was no other team in the entire world ever bought another Twitter app, right? And that was on a lot of people's minds at the time. Like maybe we could advertise through Twitter.
They were silly. Why did they spend a lot in the beginning instead of like?
Oh,
big,
well,
like that
whatever
and see?
discussions happen, right? We need to make impact. We need to go big. We need to whatever. We need to Twitter's going to be huge. So whoever knows what the discussion was, the result was wrong. And so no other team then repeated that mistake, and everyone gave them applause because I think it took some courage to actually share.